Under the pale, diffuse light of a winter twilight, the suburban canopy appears still. To an untrained observer, the solitary indigo bunting perched on an icy branch is merely resting before the frost sets in. But within that tiny three-quarter-ounce frame lies an ancient navigational computer, running complex astronomical calculations in real time. Long before humans mapped the heavens or built sextants to traverse uncharted oceans, these migratory songbirds were reading the rotation of the cosmos. They do not navigate by blind chance or vague magnetic feelings alone. They look up, reading the night sky with a level of stellar precision that redefines our understanding of non-human cognition. Consider the sheer physical scale of the journey. Every autumn, millions of songbirds embark on nocturnal flights spanning thousands of miles, crossing continent-sized darkness without a single landmark in sight. The atmosphere at midnight is a vast, featureless void, yet these aviators maintain a precise directional vector within a single degree of error. For decades, orthodox biology assumed this extraordinary feat was governed by crude, hardwired instincts, a simple biological compass locked inside a tiny brain. That assumption was wrong. Behavioral research reveals a far more sophisticated reality. These birds learn to read the night sky through an intricate process of visual observation, spatial mapping, and pattern recognition during their early developmental months. The discovery of this stellar map began not in the wild, but inside a stark, controlled laboratory beneath a simulated night sky. Researchers placed young indigo buntings into specialized conical chambers lined with blotter paper, known as Emlyn funnels. The bottom of each funnel contained an ink pad, while the top opened toward an artificial planetarium dome. As the birds fluttered upward, trying to fly in their natural migratory direction, their ink-stained feet left clear, directional tracks along the paper walls. When the simulated planetarium sky matched the real hemisphere, the birds consistently oriented toward the south. But when researchers manipulated the artificial stars, rotating the entire celestial sphere around a false axis, the young birds instantly adjusted their flight paths, aligning themselves perfectly with the new artificial north. This experiment shattered the myth of simple innate direction. The birds were not born with a static map of the stars hardwired into their DNA. Instead, they were born with a cognitive rule: observe the sky during the night, find the single point around which all other stars revolve, and establish that stationary center as true north. In the northern hemisphere, that center is Polaris, the North Star. During their first summer in the nest, fledgling buntings spend hours staring upward through the leaves, tracking the slow, agonizingly subtle rotation of the constellations across the dark canopy. They do not memorize individual stars. They calculate the geometric relationship between shifting patterns of light and the fixed central pivot around which the entire universe appears to turn. This mental process requires a staggering level of neurological processing power. Inside the avian brain sits a specialized visual region known as cluster N, a densely packed cluster of forebrain neurons that activates exclusively during nocturnal migration. While the rest of the diurnal bird world sleeps, cluster N operates at peak capacity, processing incoming visual data from the night sky and integrating it with quantum-level magnetic field sensations detected through specialized light-sensitive proteins in the bird's eyes called cryptochromes. This dual-input sensory system allows the bird to overlay a visual constellation map directly onto the Earth's magnetic grid lines, creating a real-time heads-up navigation display across their field of vision. Imagine standing on a dark ridge in early October. A damp autumn mist hangs low over the damp pine needles, obscuring the horizon. High above the fog line, a flock of Swainson's thrushes glides silently through the crisp, thin air at 3,000 feet. Below them, human cities glitter like chaotic scatterings of fallen embers, throwing artificial light pollution into the lower atmosphere. To a human navigator, this glare washes out the subtle pinpoint light of distant constellations, rendering the stars invisible. Yet the birds press forward without hesitation. When a heavy cloud bank rolls across the sky, completely blocking their view of the stars, their neural architecture instantly recalibrates. The primary visual star map temporarily cedes control to the secondary magnetic inclination compass, holding the flight line steady until a tear in the cloud cover reveals the celestial grid once more. This dynamic interplay between visual astronomy and neurobiology reveals a profound truth about animal intelligence. The songbird is not a passive passenger pushed along by evolutionary inertia. It is an active observer of the cosmos, continually calibrating its internal instruments against the motion of the sphere above. The star map is not static. It is a dynamic, living projection, constantly updated as the bird travels across latitudes where constellations shift, sink below the horizon, or rise into view. When an indigo bunting leaves its breeding grounds in North America to travel toward the dense rainforests of Central America, it crosses regions where the apparent height of the North Star drops lower with every passing night. To maintain its course, the bird must continuously adjust its internal geometric model of the sky, calculating the changing angles between major star groupings like Ursa Major, Cygnus, and Cassiopeia. It relies on a multi-layered redundancy system. If a bright moon washes out fainter stars, the bird shifts its focus to the brightest major constellations. If thick fog masks the sky entirely, it reads the alignment of polarized light patterns left behind in the western sky immediately after sunset. The physiological cost of this nocturnal navigation is immense. During the weeks leading up to migration, the avian body undergoes a dramatic transformation known as Zugunruhe, or migratory restlessness. Metabolic rates skyrocket, organs shrink to reduce flight mass, and the brain reorganizes its neural priority pathways to maintain hypervigilance during grueling 12-hour night flights. Every microsecond of flight demands precise motor control while simultaneously processing thousands of celestial data points. A single mistake in reading the sky could drift a 3-ounce bird hundreds of miles out over the open ocean, where exhaustion means swift and total oblivion. Yet season after season, billions of these tiny celestial navigators complete their journeys, touching down on the exact same patch of forest, or even the precise suburban backyard branch, where they hatched the year before. They carry within their tiny skulls a master key to the night sky, a living astronomical library forged over millions of years of evolutionary history. As we look up at the silent night sky, we see only distant twinkling points of cold light. But high above us in the dark, a tiny heart beats at 1,000 beats per minute, reading those same stars not as cold, distant rocks, but as a vivid, brilliant map leading home. Behind this extraordinary stellar navigation system lies a deeper, even more unsettling cognitive mechanism, one that allows these birds to map not just spatial coordinates, but temporal memory across changing landscapes. To rely on the sky is to accept that the sky itself is a moving target. Stars shift position with the passage of hours, and as seasons transition, entire constellations dip below the horizon while new ones emerge. A bird navigating across thousands of miles cannot simply memorize a static visual snapshot of the midnight sky. It must possess a dynamic mental clock capable of predicting where those celestial landmarks ought to be at any given hour of the night. This temporal integration relies on the avian brain's internal circadian pacemakers, located within the pineal gland and the suprachiasmatic nucleus. These biological clocks continuously compute the Earth's rotation, adjusting the bird's internal star map in real time. If an indigo bunting is captured mid-migration and held in complete darkness for 6 hours before being released under the night sky, its internal clock still knows precisely how much the celestial sphere has turned. It does not mistake a rotated constellation for a loss of direction. It instantly calculates the time-elapsed offset, recalibrating its steering angle without missing a beat. Yet the celestial map is only one layer of an interconnected, multi-sensory guidance system that challenges every traditional boundary of animal cognition. When a young bird takes to the night sky, it is not evaluating visual star fields in isolation. It is simultaneously reading the low-frequency acoustic landscape of the planet itself. Infrasound, ultra-low-frequency sound waves generated by ocean waves crashing against distant coastlines, wind shear over massive mountain ranges, and deep atmospheric turbulence, travels thousands of miles through the darkness. While human ears are completely deaf to these deep, reverberating pulses, the avian inner ear detects these continental sonic signatures. Imagine the cognitive load of a songbird flying through a crisp November night. In the upper register of its perception, the bird tracks the geometric rotation of Polaris and its surrounding constellations through cluster N. In the lower sensory register, its auditory system registers the deep, pulsing infrasonic hum of the Atlantic surf miles to the east, while its eyes sense the invisible alignment of magnetic field lines as faint bands of light and shadow across its visual field. The avian mind does not experience these inputs as separate streams of data. It synthesizes them into a single, unified, four-dimensional mental map of the hemisphere, a continuous stream of spatial awareness where sight, sound, and magnetism merge into a singular navigational reality. This hyper-integrated sensory world explains why artificial light pollution and urban sprawl pose such a catastrophic threat to migratory species. When a migrating flock encounters a brightly lit metropolis, the intense, chaotic glare from thousands of halogen bulbs and glass skyscrapers floods their delicate optical pathways. The hypersensitive cryptochrome proteins in their eyes are overwhelmed by artificial photon bombardment. Cluster N is blinded, unable to resolve the faint, precise points of starlight against the washed-out urban sky. Disoriented and stripped of their primary celestial grid, the birds drop from their high-altitude flight vectors, trapped within light cones that pull them toward reflective glass facades and disorienting architectural structures. Yet even amid this modern sensory interference, the evolutionary resilience of these avian navigators continues to adapt. Field studies on urban-adjacent migratory populations show subtle, rapid shifts in migratory behavior. Some species are adjusting their flight altitudes, climbing above the heavy glare of metropolitan light domes to reclaim their view of the unblemished night sky. Others rely more heavily on their secondary magnetic and infrasonic backups, navigating around urban centers like ships steering clear of jagged, glowing reefs. The implications of this cognitive architecture extend far beyond the mechanics of flight. They force a fundamental reevaluation of what it means to possess a mind. For centuries, Western science placed human intelligence at the apex of creation, viewing animal behavior through the reductive lens of simple reflex and mechanical instinct. We assume that complex spatial reasoning, geometry, and astronomical mapping required a massive neocortex, the layered brain structure unique to mammals. But birds possess no neocortex. Instead, their brains achieve hyper-efficient processing power through densely packed, highly interconnected neuronal clusters known as the pallium. In a brain no larger than a hazelnut, the avian pallium packs millions of neurons into hyper-dense processing nodes, achieving computational efficiencies that rival or exceed mammalian brains of far greater mass. The ability of an indigo bunting or a Swainson's thrush to process real-time astronomical data, calculate temporal shifts, and integrate quantum magnetic sensations proves that complex cognition evolved along entirely separate evolutionary pathways. Consciousness and spatial intellect are not exclusive human achievements. They are convergent solutions crafted by millions of years of ecological pressure. As the pre-dawn light begins to bleed across the eastern horizon, the stars fade one by one into the brightening sky. High above the sleeping suburbs, a solitary songbird begins its descent, dropping out of the cool, thin air toward a patch of damp woodland below. Its 12-hour flight is complete, but its internal map remains active, logging the final coordinates of its journey. It lands quietly on a frost-dusted branch, tucks its head beneath its wing, and rests. When we look up at the night sky, we see an abstract, silent void of distant stars. But to the songbird, that same sky is an illuminated highway, a brilliant clock, and a sacred map written in light. They are the true keepers of the cosmos, ancient navigators who have read the stars for millions of years, carrying the grand architecture of the universe within their tiny, miraculous minds.